Welcome to the Arms Warrior Guide, specifically designed for PvE gameplay. By focusing on maximizing damage with two-handed weapons and utilizing different procs, we experience an engaging playstyle that keeps us attentive and ready to react. Is an Arms Warrior a viable choice in Cataclysm? As Arms Warriors, we are viewed as a highly effective DPS class and provide various abilities, making us robust in 10-man raids. Let us examine the strengths and weaknesses we possess. For our strengths, we bring multiple buffs and debuffs, which are especially great in 10-man content. We scale very well with gear throughout the entire expansion. We have high damage against 3 to 4 targets with consistent cleave. We are not reliant on resources and can sustain combat infinitely. As for our weaknesses, we have procs that can create a wide variance in damage dealt. We have lower sustained AoE compared to other classes. You can always show your support by clicking the subscribe button, liking the video, and pressing the notification bell to get the latest updates. What are the best races for Arms Warriors in Cataclysm? As an Alliance player, our choices are Worgen because of viciousness and Darkflight, or Humans for the Mason Sword specialization, plus Will to Survive, which is among the best racial in the game. As a Horde player, the contenders for the best race are either Goblins because of the time is money, Rocket Jump, and Rocket Barrage, or Orcs, as they offer Axe specialization and Blood Fury. Having given a brief overview of our class, let us review our talents, glyphs, and essential talents. As Arms Warriors, we have a restrictive build with only a few talent points that can be placed depending on our preference. This section will cover all the recommended talent build for PvE content. Let us kick things off with War Academy. This talent increases the damage of Mortal Strike, Raging Blow, Devastate, Victory Rush, and Slam by 5%, making adding 3 points a necessity. Our next choice will be Field Dressing. This talent increases all the healing we receive by 3%, and the effectiveness of our self-healing abilities by an additional 10%. Consequently, make sure to add 2 points in this talent choice. For Tier 2, our choices will be Tactical Mastery, because it allows us to retain 50 Rage when we change stances, making it the best choice to adding 2 points in, and Deep Wounds, which when we crit, causes the opponent to bleed, dealing 48% of our melee weapon's average damage over 6 seconds. Up next, we have Impale, Sweeping Strikes, and Taste for Blood. Impale increases the critical strike damage bonus of Mortal Strike, Slam, and Overpower by 20%. As we will be mostly using these spells, we should add 2 points in the talent. Sweeping Strikes causes our melee attacks to strike an additional nearby opponent, and we should add 1 point in this talent. Finally, for Tier 3, we have Taste for Blood, which increases our Overpower critical strike chance by 60% and gives our Rend ability a 100% chance to proc Overpower. This effect will not occur more than once every 5 seconds. In Tier 4, our choices are Improved Slam, Deadly Calm, and Blood Frenzy. Improved Slam decreases the swing time of Slam by 1 second and increases its damage by 20%. We should add 2 points in this talent. Deadly Calm ensures that for the next 10 seconds, none of our abilities will cost Rage, and at the same time, we continue to generate Rage. This effect cannot be used when we have Inner Rage. We should add 1 point in this talent. Finally, for Tier 4, we have Blood Frenzy, which triggers the bleed effects on our targets, causing an extra 4% physical damage. Applying a bleed effect increases the bleed damage taken by the target by 30% for 1 minute. In addition, our auto attacks have a 10% chance to generate 20 additional rage. In Tier 5, our choices are Lambs to the Slaughter, Juggernaut, and Sudden Death. Lambs to the Slaughter triggers our Mortal Strike to cause the Slaughter effect, which refreshes the duration of Rend on the target and increases the damage of our Execute, Overpower, Slam, and Mortal Strike by 10%. This effect lasts 15 seconds and stacks up to 3 times. We should add 3 points in this talent. Juggernaut makes our charge ability usable while in combat and in all stances, and it reduces the duration of charge by 2 seconds. Following a charge, our next Slam, or Mortal Strike, has a 25% chance to critically hit if used within 10 seconds. However, Charge and Intercept now share a cooldown. We should add 1 point in this talent. Finally, for Tier 5, we have Sudden Death, causing our melee hits to have a 6% chance of resetting the cooldown on our Colossus Smash, and we get to keep 10 Rage after using Execute. We should add 2 points in this talent. In Tier 6, our choices are Wrecking Crew and Throwdown. Wrecking Crew causes our Mortal Strike critical hits to have a 100% chance to enrage us, increasing our physical damage by 10% for 12 seconds. Throwdown knocks the target to the ground and stuns it for 5 seconds. The final talent in the arms tree will be Blade Storm. Blade Storm transforms us into a whirling storm of destructive force, instantly striking all nearby targets for 150% weapon damage, and continuing to perform a whirlwind attack every 1 second for 6 seconds. While under the effects of Blade Storm, we do not feel pity or remorse or fear, and we cannot be stopped unless killed or disarmed, but we cannot perform any other abilities while under this effect. This is how our full tree will look like after we have added all 31 points. The remaining 10 points will be added into the Fury Tree and the Protection Tree. We will divide 7 of our 10 points in the Fury Tree between Battle Trance, Cruelty, and Executioner. Battle Trance causes our Bloodthirst, Mortal Strike, and Shield Slam hits to have a 15% chance to make our next special attack that costs more than 5 rage, consume no rage. Make sure to add 3 points in this talent. Cruelty increases the critical strike chance of Bloodthirst, Mortal Strike, and Shield Slam by 10%. We should add 2 points in this talent. The final talent in the arms tree will be Executioner, because it causes our execute hits to have a 100% chance to improve our melee attack speed by 5% for 9 seconds. This effect stacks up to 5 times. We will add 2 points in this talent. As for the remaining 3 points, we will add them to the Protection Tree in Insight. Insight increases the critical strike chance of our Heroic Strike by 15% and gives our Heroic Strike criticals a 100% chance to cause the next Heroic Strike to also be a critical strike. These guaranteed criticals cannot re-trigger the Insight effect. This is how our tree should look like once we have added the last 3 points. In this section, we will go over some of the key talents we will use when playing as an arms warrior. Be sure to understand these talents as they are vital to play the build to its fullest strength. Taste for Blood. This is our main talent, allowing us to use Overpower every 6 seconds, despite if the target dodged our attack or not. This is the key talent for our spec. Be sure to keep Rend always applied to an enemy when in combat. Sweeping Strikes duplicates all damage we deal to a second nearby enemy for 10 seconds. It will cost 0 rage when combined with Glyph of Sweeping Strikes. Use this whenever we are hitting more than one enemy. Deadly Calm removes the rage cost from all abilities for 10 seconds. We should stack this with all our other cooldowns, ideally with Recklessness. Be mindful as this cannot be used at the same time as Inner Rage. Blood Frenzy. Our bleeds cause targets to take 4% physical damage and 30% bleed damage. Improved Slam reduces the cast time of Slam from 1.5 seconds down to 0.5 seconds. This allows us to use Slam as a filler spell in our rotation. Juggernaut allows us to charge in combat, reduces its cooldown by 2 seconds, and permits us to use it in any stance. In addition, after using Charge, our next Mortal Strike will have a 25% increased crit chance. Lambs to the Slaughter causes our Mortal Strike to refresh our Rend on the target, meaning we only need to cast Rend once at the start of the fight. It also gives us a stacking buff Slaughter, stacking up to 3 times. Sudden Death gives our melee hits a 6% chance to reset the cooldown of Colossus Smash. This gives our rotation some randomness, as we will want to use Colossus Smash almost always when it is off cooldown. Sudden Death also prevents us from dropping below 10 rage when using Execute, allowing us to use Execute when our target is below 20% health. Blade Storm is a great cooldown for AoEing, absolutely melting all nearby enemies. Battle Trance gives our Mortal Strike a 15% chance to make our next ability cost no rage. We will want to ideally use these procs on Heroic Strike for the highest DPS possible. Prime Glyphs are new to Cataclysm, giving us a third row of glyphs we can use for our character. As arms warriors, we do not really have many options when it comes to Prime Glyphs, as there are very limited. The glyphs we will choose are Glyph of Mortal Strike, because it increases the damage of Mortal Strike by 10%. Glyph of Overpower, as it increases the damage of Overpower by 10%. And finally, Glyph of Slam, because of the 5% increase in the critical strike chance of our Slam ability. Major glyphs usually offer utility over damage increases compared to prime glyphs. Here are a few options we can choose from depending on whether we are in an AoE or single target fight. Glyph of Sweeping Strikes removes the rage cost of Sweeping Strikes, allowing us to AoE more easily on bosses with multiple targets or trash. Glyph of Cleaving makes our cleave ability hit 3 targets. Glyph of Colossus Smash causes our Colossus Smash to apply a stack of Sunder armor. If we are not responsible for keeping up the armor reduced debuff, we should replace this glyph. Glyph of Heroic Throw applies a stack of Sunder armor to the target. This is great on the pull and if the target is out of range. Finally, we have Glyph of Thunderclap, which increased the radius of Thunderclap by 2 yards, making it a great method for AoEing trash. Minor glyphs typically provide very minor benefits. Our choices will vary depending on what buffs and debuffs we are responsible for keeping up. In 10-man raids, for example, we will likely need to use either Glyph of Battle or Glyph of Command, with Glyph of Furious Sundering and Glyph of Berserker Rage. Glyph of Berserker Rage makes Berserker Rage generate 5 rage when used. This is very useful during downtime or trash. Glyph of Command, we should use this if we are responsible for upkeeping Commanding Shout. Glyph of Battle should be used if we are responsible for upkeeping Battle Shout. And finally, Glyph of Furious Sundering, which should be used only if we are responsible for upkeeping Sunder armor. As Arms Warriors, we have a wide range of spells available to us. Knowing our important spells and when they are best suited to be used is a key part of performing well in any environment. The sections aims to showcase our most important spells by each category and give us a brief example of what each spell does. Let us start with stances. Warriors have 3 different stances, each having unique functions that are needed in certain situations. Some spells can only be used in specific stances as well, making it important for us to understand the general purpose each stance has. Battle Stance increases all damage dealt by 5% and reduces damage taken by 5%. It allows us to use abilities that require us to be in battle stance, such as Overpower. Defensive Stance decreases all damage taken by 10% and increases threat generation by 500%. This is the main stance that Protection Warrior uses. And finally, Berserker Stance increases all damage dealt by 10% and allows us to use abilities that require us to be in Berserker Stance like Whirlwind. Damage spells. As an Arms Warrior, we will be focusing on dealing damage. These are all the main damaging spells that we will be using in various situations. Colossus Smash smashes the target for high damage and allows us to bypass all of the target's armor for 6 seconds. The armor bypass only works for the warrior and not the rest of the group. With the sudden death talent, our Colossus Smash has a 6% chance to have its cooldown reset whenever we successfully land a melee attack. Mortal Strike instantly deals moderate damage to target and reduces their healing received by 25%. This is the main iconic ability of Arms specialization. With the Lambs to the Slaughter talent, our Mortal Strike will refresh our rend on the target and grants us a stack of Slaughter, increasing the damage we deal with Execute, Mortal Strike, Overpower, and Slam by 10% per stack. This stacks up to 3 stacks in total. Rend causes an enemy to bleed for damage over time. With the Lambs to the Slaughter talent, our Mortal Strike will refresh our rend on the target automatically, no longer requiring us to keep reapplying it. Our rend will proc Taste for Blood every 6 seconds, allowing us to use Overpower without meeting the normal requirements. Overpower deals damage to the target after our attack is dodged. Taste for Blood allows use of this skill every 6 seconds if we have rend applied to the target. Overpower has no cooldown, only the standard 1.5 second global cooldown, meaning it is possible to use Overpower back to back with multiple Taste for Blood procs, or if our target dodges an attack. Slam, a 1.5 second cast time, requiring us to stand in place when using it. With the improved Slam talent, the cast time will be reduced to 0.5 seconds and its damage will be increased by 20%. While casting this, our melee attacks will be briefly paused and then resume after the cast finishes. Heroic Strike. This spell is changed in Cataclysm. It no longer replaces our next auto attack, but instead instantly deals damage and now has a 3-second cooldown. It still acts as a rage dump whenever we are getting close to the rage cap. The Incite talent increases the crit chance of our Heroic Strike by 15%, and when Heroic Strike crits, it guarantees the next will be a crit. Execute requires the target to be below 20% health before we can use this. It costs 10 rage and converts up to an additional 20 rage into more damage, up to a maximum cost of 30 rage. With the sudden death talent, we will keep 10 rage when using Execute, while at 30 rage or less. Cleave, just like Heroic Strike, this spell is also changed. It no longer replaces our next auto attack, but will instantly attack, dealing damage to our target and a nearby enemy. With the Glyph of Cleaving, this will hit 3 targets instead of 2. We should only use Cleave when attacking multiple targets. Thunderclap deals damage to all nearby enemies and reduces their attack speed by 20%. This is our main AoE ability when facing 3 or more enemies. With the Blood and Thunder talent, our rend will be spread to all targets hit by Thunderclap. Whirlwind, this ability hits all nearby enemies, no longer capped at 4 targets. The cooldown of Whirlwind will be reduced by 6 seconds if it successfully hits at least 4 enemies. Heroic Throw deals decent damage. We should use this if our target is out of melee range. Victory Rush, this can only be used after we get the killing blow on an enemy that is a similar level to us. We cannot get this proc by killing low-level enemies. It is rare to be able to use this ability as it requires us to get the killing blow to activate it. Victory Rush will also heal us for 20% of our maximum health, increased by the Field Dressing talent if we chose it. This concludes the damage spells section, and next up are our utility spells.